Hey guys, welcome back to Make That Sea Change. Paul here with you again today. And Make That Sea Change is my site and channel aimed at everything to do with setting up your own online business. And along those lines, today we're going to talk about how to start a podcast. Now, podcasting is something that has sort of gone back in time, but gone future in time, if that makes sense. A lot of us now download podcasts, which are effectively the radio shows of old. You know, back in the 50s and 60s, my grandparents used to talk about sitting around listening to the radio all day. Now, podcasts are little bites of sound, anywhere from 5 minutes to hours, that we can download and listen to on all manner of subjects. I mean, if there's a subject that you can think about, there's a podcast for it somewhere. Popular ones that do with sports, you know, true crime, celebrity, how-tos, fishing. Like, I've listened to some on fishing, I've listened to some on some crime ones, I've listened to ones on people talking about TV shows and stuff like that. If you can think of it, if you can think of a hobby, there's a podcast for it. So for those of you looking to get started with a podcast, I mean, to be brutally honest with you, if you just want to get a podcast out there, pick up your mobile phone or your cell phone, record it, and then upload it to any number of podcast programs there are. In this post, there's a link to, I've got some podcast hosting software program lists that you can have a look at. But I think what I'm trying to say very poorly is, as you can tell from this YouTube video, it's pretty much just a matter of sitting down and just doing it. Don't overthink the content that you want to put into it, just talk. But anyway, let's take a more formal look at it. So the first one obviously is to choose a topic of your podcast. So you will probably know what it is you want to talk about. But if you're in a wider niche, for example, I've got another website about fishing. I've got a YouTube channel about fishing. I talk about different things, rods, reels, fishing, all that sort of stuff. But you might want your podcast just on bass fishing, or just on walleye fishing, or just on deep sea fishing, or whatever it is you're looking at. So just think about the topic of your podcast. Is an overall topic of what it is you're talking about, or do you want to narrow it down? Don't forget, most of the software programs will allow you to put your podcast into a series of podcasts, episode guides and things like that. So you might want to do one series on bass fishing, then another series on halibut fishing, or whatever it is you want to do. If it's dog grooming, you might do a series on poodle grooming, then a series on chihuahua grooming, or whatever it is you're looking at. So have a think about how you can logically put everything into place. Then name your podcast. It can be anything that you want to name it, but think of something if people are looking through the genres or the niches that they'll look through, which most of the, if you think about, if I go on to, what do we got here? We've got Stitcher, which is one of them. If I go into Discover, you can see that I've got all these options there on my podcast that I can look at, which allows me to go through and choose what I want to do. So Road Trip Ready, Binge-worthy series, back for new season, if you like true crime, if you like comedy. So as I'm looking through comedy, Therapy Gecko, Don't Ask Tig, Two Bears, One Cave, The Tim Dillon Show, Is We Dumb. So they're different names of different podcasts. So the point of that, and you can see them all there, and that's Stitcher. That's just one of the, I'm not an affiliate of Stitcher or anything, it's just one that I use. You've got Apple Podcasts, you've got all the different ones there. So think about a name for your podcast. And then the third one is create your outline. I did say before about, you can just pick up your phone and whatever and start podcasting. That can happen. Sorry, I'm blurring a bit here. What I'm trying to say is, once you start talking, just talk. As you can see here with this YouTube video, I mean, hopefully you're still watching, but I'm just talking. I know what I want to say because I've got the outline from my post, but I'm sort of just talking as I go. If that works well for you, it's not working great for me at the moment, but if it generally works well for you, just talk. Don't get bogged down into the nitty gritty of it. Certainly don't re-edit and edit and re-edit and redo and retake all the time. That's not what podcasts are about. You'll get better at it as you go, but think about the outline of subjects you want to talk about. And that goes back to what I mentioned before about if you're in dog grooming, do you want to talk about Chihuahuas and then poodles and then Dalmatians or whatever. If you talk about gardening, do you want to talk about winter crops, summer crops, what planting in spring? So you might break your content you want to cover down into seasons. And that takes us into creating an episode outline. So how much do you want to talk about in each podcast? What do you want to cover in each podcast? And how long do you want it to go for? So, for example, if you're talking about spring perennials, you might go through the first podcast might be on just preparing your garden. Second one might be on planting. Third one might be on how to, care for them as they grow. Fourth one might be about when to remove them. If you're doing something, the true crime ones, they pick one person, they talk about it for that episode, and then they go the next person, so on. So think about, is it a single subject for each episode within your season, or is it an ongoing, this is what we do today, we'll talk about that tomorrow, we'll talk about that next day, and so on and so on. So have a think about that. So think of what you want to cover, break it down to an episode, and then think about what you want to do. Next thing you need to do there is, I've got in a post about buying the necessary equipment. As I've mentioned, a mobile phone or a cell phone will do everything you need it to do. They've all got recording function on it now. The microphones on these are actually amazing. That said, you can go as far as you want the other way. You can buy, like I've got a little microphone here. I've got a little mixing thing up there, which I rarely use now. I got it for something that didn't work properly. But you might want a little mixing desk. You might want, especially if you've got more than one person in your podcast, if you're interviewing people in your podcast, which is another very strong podcasting thing, you might need some extra equipment for that. So think about the equipment you want. My advice would be to start out simple, then build it as you go. Choose a host is my next option. Now, I've talked before about Stitcher, about Binge, about all those sort of ones. As I mentioned before, I do have a list of podcast hosting sites, which I'm just bringing up here. Buzzsprout, Spreaker, Simplecast, Podbean, Blueberry, Anchor, Castbox, SoundCloud, Libsyn, and Captivate are ones that I've listed in my post. Have a look for my post, 10 best podcast hosting site. I'll put the link in the bottom of the video here. Most of them will allow you to record. You can record on that. You can break down your episodes. You can map it all out within their hosting, and then they will get you to upload it to the actual podcasting sites where people can find it. I showed you Stitcher before, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. What else is there? What else do I use? I think that's Listener is one that we've got here in Australia. Simplecast, I think, is another one. All those sort of ones is where you host, where people can sit on their mobile phone or on the cell phone and go, okay, I want to listen to a podcast. Oh, here's one. On you go. God, there's even one in here on divorce. There's one here on reality. There's here on food, games, investment, news, current affairs, not being fat. And I mean that's what the podcast is called, Not Being Fat. All those sort of things. So find yourself a host and then upload your post from there. And then finally, from there you can look at monetization. So record your episode, post your content, which will go up onto those hosting sites we're talking about. And then monetization is what comes from it after. And that is, once you start to get a following, once people start to listen, you can start to put advertising on there, which is the only way that you can really monetize a podcast that I am aware of. I could be wrong. If you hear podcasts, they do get a bit annoying after a while, to be honest. I was listening to one the other day and there's so many ads in it, I kept forgetting what I was listening to. So you do need to manage that. That's for another video, but that's the end game as well. Okay, so for your podcast, that's how you start a podcast. Choose your topic, name your podcast, work out what you want to talk about. Once you've worked that out, break that down into episodes, start recording with your necessary equipment, whether it's a proper microphone or just your mobile or cell phone at the time. Find a host. Once you've found a host, then you'll be able to upload your recordings and get it out there into the big wide world for people to listen to. That's it, guys. Hope that was helpful. Sorry for rambling in the middle there, but the point I'm trying to make is don't make it overcomplicated. Just get in there, get your topic sorted, and start recording and get your information out there for the world to listen to. Okay, guys, hope that was helpful. If you've had any experience starting podcasts or working with podcasts, comment below. Would love to hear your information. If you're watching with YouTube, please like and subscribe to my channel, and I'll chat to you soon. Bye.